2-1, I'm on scene. I'll be assuming Caroline Street Command. I got a 2.5-story wood occupied multiple dwelling. I got heavy fire from the second floor, Charlie side. I have an exposure on the Delta side. We have one line stretch not in operation yet. Primary searches are underway. Status of the fire is doubtful. 1, passing command. I'm on the first line. Service speed advised. We're on scene. 2-story wood frame. I got heavy fire from the Alpha side.
Welcome back, fans of the Volley Chief. I know I promised that I'm going to get out of the Valley, so I figured the best way to do that was to just kind of smooth over, ease into it. So what I've done is I've gotten out of the Valley by going to someone who was from the Valley, and I think that'll start helping me with my Valleyness, if you will. So I'm going to allow my next guest to introduce himself. He also comes from the Shelton Fire Department, just like we just actually interviewed Chief DeMarco and talked a little bit about the 90s and the 80s. So, Chief, go right ahead.
How's it going? Steve Hoffman, Chief of Colchester. As the Chief said, I'm from the Valley, Shelton Fire Department. Also was from Oxford Fire Department. Started as a junior in Shelton and moved up through volunteer fire service, career fire service, and along with Chief Lenart, moved to the other side of the state to take on some new responsibilities as the chief of combination departments. So,
right, and you're also you hold another position that we're going to talk a little bit about tonight, and you're the president of our Instructors Association here in Connecticut.
Correct. Yep. President of the Instructors Association. Also for this year became chair of the Joint Council of Connecticut Fire Service Organizations. And both of those work hand in hand, both legislatively, more so on the Joint Council side, and then with the instructors, we're 500 strong, around 500 or so strong. Holding events. We do our dinners. We've been offering, which the upcoming instructors seminar that's coming up in end of January up in New Britain. So that's coming. We've been putting out events and trying to do more on the instructor development, getting information out, just to help enhance the fire service in Connecticut.
Right. And, again, Steve, just because a lot of people don't know that the organization exists, right? Like but you're not just Connecticut.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. So, the Connecticut Fire Department Instructors Association does have a strong presence with Lower Massachusetts. My vice president, Pete Bonomi, he actually is in charge of the fire service technical program that they have up at Springfield Tech. So we've developed a good relationship with that area as Massachusetts as well.
Right. And so it's not just Connecticut, it's open for any instructor, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So if I'm like one of the guys from Nebraska and I feel like joining.
Yes, because obviously that knowledge from all over the country, all over the world for that matter, does benefit all the fire service instructors here in Connecticut. So any of that knowledge or experience that we can bring home here to make our folks better, the more the better.
Right. And the other thing too is, again, you're involved in the Joint Council. I'll be honest, I really knew nothing about the Joint Council until recently, till I started, attending the upper level meetings. So take us through that, what it is and why it exists.
Sure. And I was in the same boat when I joined the Instructors Association and I started getting into the executive board level of the organization. I got asked, hey, do you want to be on the Joint Council? And I said, I don't even know what that is. So it's kind of fairly new to me too. But basically what the Joint Council of Fire Service Organizations is, it's the presidents or representatives from all the, we'll say, fire service families. So we've got the Fire Instructors Association, Connecticut Fire Chiefs, Career Fire Chiefs, Connecticut Mechanics, Connecticut State Fire Marshals, and also the Connecticut State Firefighters Association and the UPFFA. So there's usually at least 2 representatives. Sometimes it's the presidents. Sometimes it's not the presidents, and it's whoever they've appointed to be on the council. And we meet for a variety of issues that are facing the fire service. All our meetings are held at the legislative building up at the Capitol. And we end up meeting with all types of senators, state reps on whatever the topics are in the fire service at the time. It's kind of still a little early. We start developing our legislative priorities end of this month and then into January when they start opening session. But last year, changing around the teacher certification from the instructor's perspective, and getting individuals who are more involved in public safety making that track to get that teacher certification so we could get those fire and EMS tracks in the high school a little bit easier. We worked with Representative Curry out of East Hartford, along with, to make those things happen. So like I said, it's basically discussing, determining priorities, making those connections at the legislative building at the state level, and pushing those issues and trying to get, lobbying basically for the fire service in all intensive purposes.
Right, and that's the thing that I think that a lot of people don't realize is that one of the unique things about Connecticut is that there are multiple fire service organizations, and it does. I don't mean this in a negative way, but it does create an issue because you now have, instead of one meeting, you're having multiple meetings, and sometimes you're having multiple meetings with different organizations about the same topic. So the joint council is the vessel that brings it all together.
Correct. So like basically at every meeting, each of the organizations, if they're facing something and they're looking for more input from the organizations, we'll use fireworks because that's a pretty broad topic that's always comes up every year. Legislators want to push the fireworks forward. And obviously, as the fire service, from a safety perspective, the fire marshal are like, no, we don't want fireworks, right? So we're always going back and forth and having those discussions. What are the pros? What are the cons? Because things change year to year. What are the pros? What are the cons? What stance do we want to take? And who do we have to talk to and meet to get our position pushed forward so that they know we are either for or against whatever that topic is?
Right. And again, the ignorance of not knowing about it and realizing what an important, level that is in the fire service in Connecticut and how it ties in, like you said, the multiple different organizations.
Correct. And it's good. To your point, we go to all these different meetings. I'm a member of multiple different organizations, and we all talk about some of the specifics of what our organizations are for and what we look as priorities on our end. But to your point, we hear a lot of the same things said over and over and over again at all these meetings, basically, that we go to. So this is more of a centralized group where we talk about those priorities that affect the fire service as a whole while taking all the different priorities from the organizations into account.
Right. And again, it was just one of those things that once I got the key to the executive washroom and I got the list of you got to join all these organizations, again, I was amazed that that whole system was in place and I barely knew about it.
Right, and neither did I. Right, it was almost like a secret group that met. And I would say, not having been aware of it previously, I will say over the last 2.5 years that I've been involved in it, the group has worked great together. You probably see a lot of big changes that came the last 2 years with the Fire Service Administration changes coming through, the teacher certifications, cancer. Legislation that's come through, more so the presumptive cancer legislation. So a lot of these things have all been occurring because we're all working together. The strategic plan, which you've probably heard about for a statewide strategic plan for the fire service. Well, that's an overarching of where we in the Connecticut Fire Service are going to be down the road, right? We all know that we're facing recruitment and retention issues. We have a recruitment and retention task force that was created. I want to say it was by the Senate. It never really came to fruition. But the state comptroller basically took it under his wing, and the recruitment and retention committee has been meeting with him. A lot of chiefs should have gotten some type of survey, and we're trying to find out really how many firefighters do we have in the state of Connecticut, and that transitions into the strategic plan. That is also going to come out with another survey that should be coming out soon. I don't know if it's been 100% released yet, but a survey coming out soon with more information, basically gathering from the chiefs on your fire service, your EMS service, and all these different things that they're trying to collect so they can create this strategic plan for where we as a Connecticut Fire Service are going to go into the future.
Right, and again, one of the beautiful things about Connecticut, the home rule. A lot of other states don't have these issues because they have more prominent, like larger overseeing organizations such as counties or matters like that. Where Connecticut, what is there? There's 169 towns and communities, and multiple towns have multiple fire departments. And
Correct.
And trying to get the accurate number of members, of statuses, of all that, that that's a monumental task.
Yeah, it's you have departments, tax districts, companies, multiple companies inside departments. I mean, Groton has, I don't know exactly how many, 10 separate departments. You have that different conglomerates throughout the state of Connecticut, and basically reaching out and trying to get those numbers. And to your point, every municipality or organization defines active firefighter a little differently, correct? I mean, just
Correct.
based
Yep.
on what their community's needs are and those types of things. So coming to a unilateral definition of what that active member is to get those accurate numbers is also, to your point, it's different throughout the state. So
Yeah, and I mean, again, Connecticut is a like any state, we have our quirks and the lack of the county systems. The fire service still has a little bit, right? We still have the county coordinators in those positions, but it varies county to county. And Connecticut doesn't have, for those of you listening, there's no official counties anymore in Connecticut, right? We dissolved the county system in the 60s. So our counties are geographic only in paper. If you look at a map of Connecticut, yes, it shows the different counties, but they're literally just their name on a map. They don't have any teeth. And even I for the longest time didn't even know that, I knew that New Haven County fire chiefs met once a month. Nobody said, hey, you had to go to them. Nothing ever really was right. Like nothing, but I hate to say it, right? Like nobody said, hey, you need to be at this meeting. We have important stuff to discuss. And, right, like all of us, you're juggling 15 different meetings. So I'm not going to that one. And I don't know whatever went on at those. And then I came up, to Summers, and it was like everybody was like, "Hey, you go to the county, you go into the county meeting, go to the county meeting." It's a bigger thing, and I think it's a little bit too different with Talon County because the dispatch center is
right.
is intertwined with that, so it made it a little bit different of an organization per se. But I feel like there's a layer missing in the fire service in Connecticut, and off the top of my head, I think the past 6 weeks with the drought and the forest fire thing. I think that showed that giant gap that we have
Mm-hmm.
with the dissemination of information. And I don't know if you felt that way, and maybe skirting off a little topic here a little bit, but did you think so?
Yeah, 100%. We sent myself and an engine crew down to Berlin, and you had a lot of different layers. You had the IMT team from Region 3 and Region 4. You had county coordinators involved. You had the regional coordinators from emergency management involved. You had fire service leaders. You had state Department of Forestry. You had there with them leading a portion of it too. You had a lot of different layers and a lot of different areas. Plus, you had your local command structure as well. The chief of Berlin being in charge from the IC's perspective, and you had a lot of resources there. So
Yeah,
it's a,
I felt like it was we would see different things coming from different organizations through different people. And, like you'd see fellow fire chiefs posting like weather reports or posting, status maps. And I'm calling around. Does anyone know where I can get that? Because I could use it.
mm-hmm.
And it was just, I actually, I did send a letter to the Career Chiefs Association asking if there was going to be an after action, if we could push for that, because I really feel like that flow of information is not, it's the hierarchy in Connecticut is so confusing of the fire service. There's the town fire chief, and then you have the county coordinator or the county. It just it didn't flow like it should, and it didn't flow like it should in a command system or a command chart or an org chart. And I like you said, like all of a sudden, like deep wildland gets involved, and then it almost reminded me at the beginning of COVID when all of a sudden the public health departments were like calling the
Yep.
shots, and none of us knew that because in every hurricane, blizzard, or other disaster we dealt with, it flowed from the state and it flowed through the regional coordinators for emergency management, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh no, not us, them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was I would agree with you, and I think that an after action report is exactly what needs to happen. I know we at the Joint Council, we were talking about that, and we're sending something to DEP to try to get that moving forward. To your point, there was a lot of resources. Wildland firefighting in Connecticut is not something that happens obviously a lot here. It was a large scale event, um, and the coordination part, we practice and we send out all these spreadsheets of all these resources, and we have all this communication about who to call and all this kind of stuff. And there were so many layers involved in this. I think to your point, some of the chiefs were getting lost in the mix because we were getting stuff from county coordinators, we're getting stuff from emergency management, we're getting stuff from IMT, and we're trying to disseminate. Plus, we're getting emails from the state forestry service, and we're trying to disseminate all this information on what they need and what's going on. Add all the other, brush fires that were happening around the state as well.
I
And
mean,
now
you
we're stripping resources.
you had to notify the state, right? What, three
Yep.
times? If you
Yeah.
had a brush fire in your town, you had to notify, right? You had to notify DEEP, you had to notify the state fire administration, and you had to notify
Emergency management.
emergency management,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And the state, and you have to know the state fire marshal.
Yeah.
So four. You had to. So if you had a small brush fire in your town, you had to notify You had to notify the state 4 times through 4 different people that you had a brush fire.
Right. And you were just like information overload.
Right.
Right. On top of all the other stuff that, all the jurisdictions had going on with their own local, it's regular calls and regular administrative tasks. Now you're sending the same information 3 times.
Yeah. It just, it's, but like going back to the Joint Council, that organization is more important in the fire service than I think a lot of people know and don't even realize it exists.
And we're going to shake up the apple cart because I know you're part of the career fire chiefs and the Connecticut chiefs and all that. And you probably got a hold of that high level concept, Connecticut Fire Service, whatever that would be called, with what kind of mirrors the Police Chiefs Association's makeup and hierarchy, right? They have an executive director, they have part-time, and underneath is all these committees that represent all these different factions within the Connecticut Fire Service. And it's this high level concept that was thrown out there to see how the taste in the waters would be, because we know how the change in the fire service goes, right? It's
absolutely,
it's gotta feel the waters first before you do. But it seems to be actually openly accepted by a lot of individuals across the state.
Right.
So we'll see what that unveils.
I just think it's time.
Yeah.
Like, again, when you're getting 4 different emails from 4 different organizations about the same thing, and you got to sit through 4 different meetings,
right?
You really do start to say to yourself, like, what are we doing here?
Right, 100%. And look at the police chiefs organizations where they have a paid person in charge of making all these connections and doing all this administrative work and stuff. Like, all of us who are chiefs, whether we're combination chiefs, volunteer chiefs, career chiefs, we all have all these other responsibilities. Some of us having multiple responsibilities. Some of us are EMDs on top of the fire chief, or we're EMDs, fire chiefs, and fire marshals. We have all this other stuff going on. And now, hey, you also need you to be the president of this organization, and we need you to go up to the LOB and handle all this legislative stuff, and we need you to do press conferences and press releases and all this. And you're just overloaded, right, with all these other things, because you want to do good, right? You want to make the Connecticut Fire Service better, but you're stretching yourself like a rubber band in so many different directions.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
I mean, that's I hate to say it, but that's the important thing, is that we need to centralize it, and we need to centralize the information.
Right, exactly. And I think this high level concept that was thrown out there, I think, is a good start. It's a good conversation builder. And I think, to your point, it's like a direction we as a Connecticut Fire Service, I think anybody can say that we have the numbers and there's power in numbers. And if we can all stick together and have those discussions and come to whatever that outcome will be, I think it's only going to be better for the Connecticut Fire Service. A lot of things are working in our favor. We're getting the strategic plan. Hopefully that's going to build us a roadmap for the future. This high level concept discussion, what that unfurls as far as us centralizing this information. And, we have those, like the fire marshals and the career chiefs. There's some specifics within those groups, right, where those topics have to be talked about, whether those are committees or however underneath that structure. So I think that as we move forward, a lot of these things are going to flush out. We have a lot of new chiefs moving up, who are taking somewhat of a different direction than maybe in the past. And that's also because the climate's changing, society's changed, cultures have changed, things have changed, and we have to be able to adapt to those changes. And I think more specifically to like recruitment and retention wise, I'm a combination department. Majority of my personnel are volunteer, and we're seeing the struggle of trying to get individuals to join the volunteer fire service. So what can we do within these organizations and move in the Connecticut Fire Service to make sure that we're successful and we're able to provide that service to our communities? So a lot of questions to ask, and we're working forward with it, and we'll see what happens. But
right, and I think it's another side to the fire service. A lot of people don't. You don't think when you're sitting in your firehouse, hanging out for the afternoon, just watching TV or doing that this machine is happening, behind the scenes, and that you don't realize that a lot of where this stuff is coming from a lot of times, and the amount of like you mentioned, the cancer bill and the amount of man hours that people have into that.
right.
And the other side of that too is the amount of man hours people have into those types of things that are not part of their regular duties. Like you said, you're juggling running your fire department on top of sitting on this committee.
But I think all the individuals, whether they're presidents of their organizations or their leaders within the fire service, they want to see the Connecticut Fire Service move forward. They want to see the Connecticut Fire Service succeed. Our communities want to make sure that we're getting those firefighters, volunteer or career, to be sure that we are able to provide that essential service to our communities. And I think, we sacrifice that free time, or whatever else we got going on, because we want to do those things. We want to see the Connecticut Fire Service get better. And luckily we have people that are willing and want to do those things.
Right. And I'm enjoying the conversation. I think it's a great topic. As you know, I like to keep the shows around 20 minutes. We're hitting the 20-minute mark, or past that a little bit. Give me one, coming from down here in the valley, right? Urban areas, busy, I guess you'd say like good street rep for fire service, being busy. And then we ventured out. Like, what's one culture shock that you would say you got leaving the valley?
Ultra shock. Wow. Well, I can, like we had just talked about before this, there's it's amazing how you can move from one part of the state to the other side of the state and see how different departments operate. Culture shocks. I would say how they resource apparatus and resource equipment. What they call up here engine tankers and all these different. It was something that I had to get used to. Also, numbering. Where Colchester is, we are in like this little epicenter where we're at the corner of all these different counties. So we're basically mutual aiding with all these different types of systems, and how they number their apparatus and what they call their apparatus, and all the different communications methods that we have to use out here. All that was a culture shock. I'll be honest with you. I became chief. My first call, I rode on the rescue and I rode up front, and there were 6 radio heads in the front of the rescue. And I looked at the driver and I was like, which one do I talk to our dispatch to say that I'm responding? Because we had so many radios and so many different communication frequencies and so many things that it was a culture shock for me, because obviously down by the valley, it wasn't as elaborate or as extensive, right, as far as the radio communications goes. So,
no, I would agree. The one thing that I say is so relieving is that for the first time in my career, I have a department that doesn't deal with a limited access highway. Right? I mean, right? Yeah. We spent our lives on Route 8, and then
yes,
and then obviously 95 running through Bridgeport. So to go somewhere where like that is, I mean, obviously traffic is always in the top of your mind when you're out on a call, when you're at an accident. I mean, it doesn't, but like the fact that I don't have like a highway is like one of my, like, I take a little bit of like because I don't have to,
It's a whole different danger zone. Route 2, which runs through Colchester, is just like Route 8. Yep. It's like the Audubon.
Yeah. Yeah. But I thank you very much, Chief, for having to sit down with me. I appreciate you going over the Instructors Association and the Joint Council, because they're important organizations in the Connecticut Fire Service. And, I feel like the one disservice that is you're obviously, since you've been involved in the Instructor Association, you have a good social media presence, you're getting the word out, and that organization in the past couple of years, I've seen just from that, be a lot more well known. But the Joint Council, is like we said, it's kind of like cloak and dagger. You didn't really know much about it.
No, and like I said, we're trying to get the word out more and get people to know exactly what the Joint Council does. I've gone to Hartford County's dinner and talked about the Joint Council. We've Chief Greg Priest from West Hartford, who's my vice chair. He went through during the strategic plan. He was going to all the county chief meetings and really pushing the strategic plan, talking about the Joint Council, and really getting people to understand what that group does. Because, like you said, it was kind of been under the tablecloth for a while. Just hide. Nobody really knew what it was. They've maybe have heard about it before, but they didn't know what it did.
Right. So thanks for your time. We'll see you at the next meeting that we share together, whichever one of the 5 different meetings that could be.
The myriad of meetings, yes. Well, thank you very much. I do appreciate it.
All right, and remember, fans, make the machine work for me. As I always say, don't forget to like and subscribe and follow my social media, because that's how the more people that click the like, the more people that subscribe to the channel, the more people that comment. It feeds the machine. It helps me out. So that's it, everyone, for this week. I just want to say enjoy, and we'll see you next week. FD1's back in service. Commands terminated.